So here we've got our 2.1.4, y equals mx plus b. That should look familiar. And you'll notice that in that box, I've identified some things for you. Now, these are kind of like universal vocabulary words. So we have y equals mx plus b. I did color code. You're not shocked, I'm sure. X and y, those are called variables. Variables, things that can change. So you can plug different values into them and they can alter or vary or change. M and B are called parameters. I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to ask you to identify parameters for me. However, I am going to ask you to identify what a coefficient is and what a constant is. Again, those are generic. A coefficient is a number that is attached to a variable through multiplication. So if we had like 7x, the 7 and the x are attached to each other, the coefficient is 7. It's just the number. M is a coefficient because slope is just a number attached to the variable. B is a constant. A constant is just a number with no variable attached to it through multiplication. So 9 plus x. Notice that the 9 and the x are separated from each other. The 9 is the constant. So that's important to note. Might want to take a minute to get that written down in your notes, and then go ahead and write down the directions for the next question. So our first question, 1A, and then you guys do have that blank graph on your images sheet for the 1A and B and C. So take a moment, get this stuff written down. Okay, so taking a look at our directions here, we're trying to determine if the amount of information that was given to us is enough to find the single graph that matches that information, and then to be able to write the single equation that matches that information. So we don't want there to be multiple answers. We want there to just be one. So that's the question that we're trying to figure out. So we want the one specific line. All right, so I'm going to take the information that I have and I'm going to put it on my graph. So I have the point 2, 5. As a reminder, a point is an x, y. So to be able to graph this, we're going to start from the origin, go 2 in the x direction, so 2 to the right. Then we're going to go 5 in the y direction from there, so 5 up. So we're going to go to 2, 5. So my green dot is the point that I just graphed. So I went ahead and just graphed that point. Okay, so now I'm going to ask myself, all right, is there one single line that I can draw through that point, or are there multiple? I'm hoping just one, but if I take a look at this, I know that that point is on a line, but I can draw so many lines that go with this. So maybe the line is flat. That could be the case. So 0 slope. Maybe the line has a positive slope. That could be the case. We already have problems because I can come up with multiple lines already. Maybe it has a positive slope and maybe it's steeper than the orange line, okay? Maybe it has an undefined slope. You see, I could sit here and come up with a whole bunch of different graphs. Maybe there's a negative slope. There's too many choices here. So based off of the fact that I was given one point, that's not enough information for me to write one single equation. So the issue is that just one point allows me to draw a whole bunch of different lines. Which means there's no one line. Which means over with the equation, this can't be done. There's too many choices. All right, so we have some more. I did give you 2 more images on this sheet for these graphs. We now have different pieces of information, so let's see if this works. So I have a slope of -3. Okay, that's good. So remember, slope is m, and I've got -3. Now, I like to see a fraction when I see slope because I know the top is the rise, up, down, and the bottom is the run, the right, left. So I need something on the bottom of this. But you guys know, whenever a number needs a denominator, you can always put a 1 down there. So I've got my slope now, so I feel pretty good about that. But I think I need more information, so let's keep looking. Oh, goes through the origin. All right, I think that's a point. We even talked about the origin last class. Remember, the origin goes through the middle of the graph, so that's the 0, 0. So I think, well, I don't know. Well, let's see what happens. I think we might have enough information. So I know that I have a point at 0, 0. So I'm going to go to the origin. I'm going to plot my point. And then I know I've got this slope of -3, 1. Okay, so from that point, remember the top tells me to go up or down. So I'm going to go down 3. So 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to go right 1 since the bottom is a +1. Okay, once I get there, I think I can find another point. So call it my orange point because I used my slope to get there. All right, now using the green point and the orange point, can I create a single line? Just one. Yeah, I think so. With 2 points, the line has to go through both of those. So let's go ahead and connect the dots. So making sure that you are using a straight edge for this. So that means anything that has a straight side. You could use another pencil because most of the time those are pretty straight. You could use the edge of a notebook. You could use probably the edge of your phone too. The coasters, if your parents have those square coasters. So can I draw one line here? Yes, I can. There is exactly one line with this information. So that's good, which means I can write the equation too. So remember, I'm going to have y equals, okay, m is my slope, which we identified as -3/1 x. And then my point, well, if you take a look at my point is also my starting value because it's hitting the y-axis. And it hits the y-axis at 0. So I can rewrite this though, just so you know. We don't have to have the 1 underneath the slope. That's not necessary. And adding 0, that's not necessary either. I'm a big fan of writing it though because I think it's important to see. Okay, let's see about the next one. So it's going to go through that point, -3, -2. Okay, so let's plot that point, -3, -2. It's going to go through another point as well, 3, 10. All right, let's plot that point. So 3, 10. You'll notice that I'm kind of in the same situation as I was on B. I have 2 points. I think we can draw this line. So we want to go between those 2 points. I want to extend my line. Then I need to be able to write the equation. So yeah, there's exactly one line. So the same reason as the previous one. So it's exactly one line with this info. But neither of the pieces of information that I were given was the starting point, so B, or the slope, M. But I think we can find them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the very bottom point that I was given. So my little green dot down here that got covered up with the arrow, and my green dot up here that got covered up with the arrow. And I'm going to count slope between those. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to start at the one on the left. Remember, we go left to right. And I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to keep going. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I went up 12 just to get level with that point. And let's figure out how far we got to go over. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is right 6. All right, I think I can figure out my slope. So my slope is, remember the up-down part goes on top, so plus 12, and then the right-left part goes on the bottom, plus 6. But I'm going to go ahead and simplify that, and I know that that is going to be 2, but I'm going to put a 1 underneath it. So remember, I can put a 1 under any of them. I'm going to use that to see if I can somehow find the y-intercept. Now, I think I see it on the graph, but I want to be sure. I want to make sure that I'm absolutely right. So I'm going to use that slope of 2 over 1. And I'm going to start from the bottom left point, and I'm going to work my way to the right. But I'm going to work my way until I hit the y-axis. So I'm trying to find B. All right, so from the green point on the bottom again. So I'll go up 1, 2, right 1. Okay, good. I found a point on the line. I'm feeling pretty good about my 2 over 1 slope. Let's do it again. Up 2, right 1, another point. But I'm going to keep going until I hit the y-axis, which I haven't done yet. But I see that it's coming. Up 2, right 1. There we go. I hit the y-axis. You notice that the orange line and the purple dot that I just graphed are right on top of the y-axis. Now, I think my starting value is 4, since it's up 4 boxes. So I've got my starting value is 4, which means I think I can write my equation. So I'm going to go over here, start writing my equation. Y equals, well, the slope I found was 2 over 1. X plus, okay, the starting value I found was 4. Now remember, I don't need the over 1 part, so let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So y equals 2, that was my slope. X plus my starting value of 4. So there's my equation for those two. So yeah, it was possible. So thinking back to what we just did on the previous slides, what are the requirements? It's like, what will get us what we need? Well, there was really only 2 combinations that worked for us. And that was if we had slope and a point. It just so happened that the point that we were given was the starting value, or the second situation that we just did, which was 2 points. Those are the bare minimum things we have to be able to do a specific singular graph or singular equation of a line. Okay, so the last thing that I want to do is a little bit of practice, today, is a little bit of practice of being able to calculate slope, but a different way. So we don't want to do this with graphing, but we do want to do this with more of like that formula-driven part. Now, rest assured, you'll get the exact same answer if you graph these points. So as a reminder, off to the side, we know our slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the thing that we definitely want to focus on right now is identifying, well, what are these x2, y1 business? When you are given a pair of points, which is basically this, when you're given a pair of points, we want to be able to identify each of them as x and y's, because by definition, an ordered pair is x comma y. So if I take a look at this, I know that 6 is an x and 5 is a y. Well, but which one is it? Is it the 1 or the 2? Well, I think about it in the order that I actually ran into it in the question. It is the first ordered pair I saw in this question, so I would call them x1 and y1, just based off of finding them first. Then these guys are x and y with subscripts of 2. Now, just plug it into the formula and see what you get. So I'll have slope is equal to the second y minus the first y. Remember, y's on top. And then the second x minus the first x. And then do the subtraction. 7 minus 5 is 2. The subtraction in the bottom doesn't make any sense to me, so I'm going to turn it into a negative sign and then flip it to a plus. And that's going to give me -3. Now, it's okay if you subtract them in a different order. Maybe you did 5 minus 7 on top and 6 minus 3. You're still going to get 2 and -3. It's just that your -2 is going to be on top and your 3 is going to be on the bottom. Those are both correct. They are the exact same thing. And we'll talk about that a little bit more next class. So, see if you guys can do part B and actually plug it into your formula. I'm going to do it slowly so you can check your work as you're going. So check your answer. See how you did. The subtractions didn't make sense to me, so I turned them into add, but a negative sign. And then I ended up with a negative divided by a negative, which I know is positive. And 2 goes into 4 evenly. Should give the last one a shot. And you can follow along as I'm doing it, so you can see my process. Be sure that you're putting the y's on top and the x's on the bottom. That's super important. And I think that does it.